Hello, my name is Brad Spence, and this will be part 1 of my War of Austrian Succession series. Alright, let's begin. Our tale begins with Emperor Charles VI of the Holy Roman Empire, who had one major problem: no male heir. His son Leopold Johann had died infancy in 1716, ending the male line of the House of Habsburg, mainly thanks to inbreeding, meaning that they only had the female line to go on, which meant that the Habsburg Empire would be divided between his nieces, Maria Josa, who would marry King Augustus III of Poland, who was also the Elector of Saxony, and Maria Amala, who would marry Elector Charles of Bavaria in 1719, but more on that later. When Charles ascended the throne of Austria and the HRE, he would issue the Pragmatic Sanction, which ended Salic law. Salic law was a civil code issued by King Clovis I of the Franks, which did not allow females to inherit. This meant females could inherit lands in the Habsburg Empire, but his children were favored to inherit the lands of the Habsburg Empire. In 1719, when his nieces got married, Charles had both of them formally renounce their claim to the Habsburg inheritance. Charles, believing despite the increase in size and power of Bavaria and Saxony, the two electors would not allow the other to inherit, but instead he gave two of his greatest rivals a claim to the Habsburg lands. For the rest of Emperor Charles VI's reign was spent securing the succession of his daughter Maria Theresa to the Habsburg lands, but also crown of the Holy Roman Empire, despite not grooming her for the role of leadership, with her being trained more for the role of consort than the role of a large feudal empire. Things came to a head in 1738 with Austria's involvement in the War of Polish Succession and the war against the Ottomans not going well for them. This week in Austria, coupled by the failures of preparing Maria Theresa for her new role, Bavaria Saxony rejected the Pragmatic Sanction of 1735, leading to a crisis within the empire. Now we must introduce a new player into the field, King Frederick II, later to be known as Frederick the Great, who was the ruler of the Kingdom of Prussia. He would eventually become Maria Theresa's arch-enemy. The future Frederick the Great was the son of the soldier king Frederick William I, who famously bullied his son for his fondness for playing the flute, speaking French, and reading Enlightenment philosophy. But like Philip II of Macedon, Frederick William would give his son the tools to make Prussia into a great power. During Frederick William I's reign, he reformed the state finances, cracked down on corruption and crime, imposed strict regulations on civil servants, centralized the monarchy, and his pet project reforming and doubling the size of the Prussian army, thanks to the canton system which he created. When Frederick William I died on May 31st, 1740, the 28-year-old Frederick became king in Prussia, and he was left with one of the largest armies in Europe and began to style himself as an enlightened monarch. One of the first things that Frederick did as king was to not endorse the Pragmatic Sanction, and when Emperor Charles VI died on the 20th of October 1740, Frederick saw it as a complete transformation of the old political system. Frederick disputed the 23-year-old Maria Theresa's claim to the Habsburg lands, and demanded Silesia, using an old, ambiguous Hohenzollern claim to the land. Frederick also aligned Prussia with Charles Albert of Bavaria and France, with them planning their war plans against Austria and its allies, and make Austria face a two-front war. So on the 16th of December, the Prussians invaded Silesia with the main Austrian military forces stationed in Hungary and Italy, meaning that the Austrians couldn't react fast enough, and Frederick captured northern Silesia, but he failed to capture the fortresses of southern Silesia, and Maria Theresa planned to retake Silesia in the next campaigning season. That brings us to the end of the video. Stay tuned for part 2. See you next time.